Why do we have to sit around and debate Nazis? Why do we have to sit around and have conversations about why genocide isn't okay? Why do we have to have conversations about this shit? Why can't you just listen to a person of color say that white nationalist rhetoric is violent and fucking believe it? Hey guys, it's Kat and it's time for another episode of True Tea. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for yet another episode of True Tea. I really appreciate all the love and support that I've gotten for this series. You guys mean so much to me. The comments, the shares, the conversation starting that I see on social media. I really appreciate all of it. Thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart. Now we are going to be having an interesting conversation in this video, and before we jump into it, my voice is a little messed up. I'm a little sick. I probably shouldn't be making this video, but I had, passion in my soul, so I wanted to share it with you guys. So yeah. So anyway, we're gonna jump right into this video, but before we do, I do suggest you go to your kitchen and grab yourself a beverage. Now, once again, I am drinking some box wine because I'm just a rich bitch like that. I just got it like that. Like I said, I'm sick, probably shouldn't be drinking, but you know what? Every moment we're alive, we're a moment closer to death. So why not do it with the finest of box wine? Anyway. Oh, so expensive. So I wanted to talk to you guys about something that has been on my mind. So I'm currently in the process of writing the second part of my white nationalism on social media video essay. And this is something I wanted to say, but I don't really feel like fits into my video essay. So I wanted to kind of do this video, even though I've kind of talked about this before. Those of you guys who have followed me for a minute, you guys have probably already heard me talk about this. I want this to be the last time I have this conversation because this is something that has been bothering me for a bit, and I really wanted to kind of just discuss it and have this one video so that you guys know exactly how I feel. So here it is. We're going to be talking about why BreadTube or LeftTube is so white. Now, I know that a lot of people hearing this are probably going to think that this is going to be a salty video, right? And I don't know, maybe there's a little salt there, maybe there's a little bit of, pink Himalayan there. But honestly, I'm just trying to express how I feel because in sort of my writing about white nationalism and also researching, the YouTubers on here who I feel are reinforcing it or are at the very least pandering to it, I've kind of had a lot of realizations. And in my, watching of those videos that people have where they say, oh my gosh, I was almost alt-right, but so-and-so changed my mind. It just kind of made me have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts. So I wanted to get into that. So let's, another swig of wine before we get into this, because I already know y'all are not gonna like this video. Let me go get another glass of wine. So I know this might shock people, but I'm not, this is something that I wish people understood about me. I'm not the sort of person who has ever liked to be defined by my race, my gender, my sexuality, anything. That's not the sort of person that I am, and that's never really been the sort of person that I am. This is a whole nother conversation for another video, but one of the things that I've recognized on YouTube is that I have been, whether I like it or not, pigeonholed into being a certain type of person. I had an interview with a magazine recently, and they wanted to talk about me being a transgender YouTuber. And am I a trans person on YouTube? Absolutely. Do I make videos that occasionally talk about trans issues? Absolutely. But I've in my, at least this channel's existed for about 10 years, right? Almost 10 years. I've been on YouTube since I was 15 years old. I've uploaded to this channel around 1,500 videos. Most of those videos obviously are not public, but of those videos, under 400 of them reference my transness or other people's transness or are about trans topics, right? but simply by the virtue of me being one of the very few transgender people on YouTube who's been making videos nearly as long as I have, I am pigeonholed as a transgender YouTuber, right? Simply by the nature of me being one of the few Black people on YouTube, I am often pigeonholed as being a Black YouTuber, right? And the thing is, in my life, I've never really liked to be defined exclusively by those things. Not that those things are shameful or things that I don't claim, they are. You know, I love all aspects of who I am, but at the same time, it's been kind of frustrating for me to be defined by those things. Now, why I want to have this conversation was because one of the things I've kind of recognized about being a person like myself in this space is that because of my rarity, because of how often you will not find people like me, I become this avatar, right? I become this thing for people to project onto. Now, one thing I want to make super, super clear before we get into this video is that I absolutely love LeftTube. I absolutely love RedTube. You know, some of these people are people who I not only consider to be my personal friends, but I admire as creators. Bomber Guy, ContraPoints, Ollie, PhilosophyTube. Like, these are some people who I love their content, and I've loved their content for so long, and I've shared their content. I've been in boardroom meetings when I've, you know, introduced their content to people, and I love what they're doing. And I think that what they're doing is so incredibly powerful, is so incredibly valuable. And my thought process through most of these things has always been, as long as people are out there making the work, doing the work, I support it regardless. You know, I'm not one of these YouTubers who's driven by how many clicks and views and money I have. Some of you guys who've been following me for a bit know that I've sabotaged my YouTube channel several times because I just didn't want any sort of degree of fame or popularity. That's not why I'm here. And so I'm happy to see, you know, Vanity Fair cover ContraPoints. I'm happy to see, you know, all of the media coverage that Ollie is getting. I think that that's all amazing, right? My sort of frustration comes with how people receive them versus how they receive me, right? Now, going back to what I just said about not wanting to be defined by the various things that I can define myself as. I mean, we're not going to get into my like growing transhumanist thought process. That's a whole nother conversation for another video. But you know, at the end of the day, this is my shell and I love my shell, but I have to be aware of the fact that my shell is viewed in certain ways, in certain contexts by certain people. And one of the things that's been very aggravating for me, very, 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 very aggravating for me, is how frequently my narrative is taken, twisted, recentered, and become the truth, right? And it's very hard for me not to notice that when I don't quite see the same thing happening to my white counterparts. Now, if you guys don't understand what I just said, which I mean, I get it. I just had a full glass of wine, so maybe I'm a little tipsy, I don't, but put it this way, right? One of the things I've had to deal with being on YouTube, right, is the fact that so many people click onto my videos and without hearing anything I say, have already decided exactly who I am, have already decided exactly how I feel about the issue. They read the title, they look at me, and they know exactly who I am and how I feel. And it's always been frustrating to me because, you know, look, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but there's very few things that get under my skin. Very, 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 very few things that get under my skin. But one of the things that really does is when someone just lies about me. You know, I don't have a problem with my ideas and my perspectives being put up to muster. I don't have an issue with people challenging you know, my criticisms. I don't. You know, I love the fact that YouTube exists as an open platform for us to all exchange ideas and we can respond and criticize. I think that is beautiful. I think that is amazing. I think that's what we should be doing on here, right? But what I've found personally is all too often, what I say doesn't matter as much as what a white man has said that I said. Now stay with me. Now, I'm not the sort of person who believes in white approval, okay? And when I say white approval, that means that my work is somehow more valuable because a white person said that it was, right? I'm not, okay? But one of the things that I definitely have observed is that people are more willing to give my work a chance if a white person says that it's okay, right? On the flip side, if a white person says the opposite, if a white person says that my work isn't valuable, that it doesn't have any merit, they're willing to believe that as well. I've been on YouTube since I was 15 years old. I've got incredibly thick skin. Y'all have never really known the full depth of harassment that I've actually experienced. And when I say harassment, I don't mean people disagreeing with me. I mean harassment, stalking, shit that I could put people in jail for. You know, y'all will never really know the full extent of that because I'm not that sort of person who's gonna sit online and bitch and moan about it all day long. But I've experienced a lot of shit. And what a lot of people don't get is that I was one of the first people to make this type of content, okay? Who had the audacity to stand up and say, I'm a feminist, and put that out there and take the abuse, right? I'm not saying be thankful, I'm not saying any of that, but I'm saying that I set a lot of the foundation for a lot of the work that you guys love right now. But what's frustrating to me is that people don't believe what I'm saying. Like, I'll just be specific. I got really sidetracked. But basically what I'm saying is that I'm not really bothered by a lot of the shit. It's just, I wish people would listen to what I was saying, right? Give you an example. Let me take another swig of wine, even though I don't need it. So Andy Worski, we're naming names in this video, right? Years ago, Andy Worski made a video responding to a video that I made about the Irish slave conversation. Now that video that I made is privated because I didn't have all of the, I mean, not that a lot of things I said were wrong in that video, but there were aspects of it that were wrong because I didn't have all the information, so that's private now. But in the video, I basically answered the question about Irish slaves, and I talked about how some of the Irish who came over to America came over as indentured servants. Because a lot of times when we talk about chattel slavery, right? People like to get into this whole, well, what about the Irish conversation, right? And the Irish definitely experienced a lot of stuff, you know? Like, and we're not gonna get into all this stuff because it's not a history video, but the Irish definitely dealt with a lot of things, right? But my position has always been that it's different. It's very, 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 very different than what chattel slavery is. Now, for the people who have not actually studied this stuff, I understand how people can look at like the very shallow read of it and say, oh, Black slavery and then Irish, you know, slavery, right? I see how people can look at that and be like, oh my gosh, you know, these are the same things, but it's not. You know, if you were a Black slave, your children were slaves for generations upon generations upon generations. That's what chattel slavery is, right? When you come over to America under indentured servitude, it's a completely different type of slavery. And I'm not saying that, I never even said that it was better or worse. I said it was different. But what becomes the truth, right? Annie Worski makes a video talking about how I said that, you know, it's not, basically what he said was that I believe that white slavery is not as bad as Black slavery, right? It's not what I said at all, but that's what becomes the truth. And now I continuously get comments on my videos that are like, oh, katblaque thinks that white slaves aren't that bad, which is not what I said, right? But that becomes the truth. And it's really aggravating for me to kind of have this kind of repeated experience of me saying something very clearly and very concisely, and it's very intentionally misrepresented, and then I'm now being held accountable for that misunderstanding of what I said so clearly. You know, I made a video about whether or not it's transphobic to not be attracted to a trans person. You know, now I understand that a lot of people watching these videos who are unaware of trans life, or even look at me, like you might think, oh, look at this katblaque person, you know, she's like ugly or whatever, right? I get how you can see that, you know, but like I'm cute, you know, like, so, so it's like, I don't know, I've never had a struggle with dating, and so I have a really hard time equating rejection to transphobia. That's always been how I felt. consistently throughout every time I've ever said something. Then this white guy makes a video about how I think that it's transphobic to reject a trans person. I think it's titled something like "Katblaque doesn't understand attraction," right? And it's so frustrating because in the actual video that I made, I said, hey, I don't think that rejecting a trans person is transphobic, but when a white man gets to come over and gets to, you know, when a white man comes over and corrects it and rephrases it and says something different and edits what I say, that suddenly becomes the truth. And that's very frustrating to me because, well, that's not what I said. And here's my thing. I have no problem with people criticizing me. I have no problem with people critiquing my points. But I find that all too often, instead of actually engaging with my content, people say, okay, she's black, okay, she's trans. I've had arguments with a black person. I've had arguments with a trans person. Let me pull from my pre-established arguments, right? Let me pull from my predetermined, you know what I mean? Let me pull from my arsenal of arguments that aren't already my own. Like I saw some other guy make this argument, but I'm gonna repeat the argument. Like, let me pull from that arsenal and throw it onto her. And it's so frustrating because you could just engage with my work. You could just actually critique my perspectives, but you never do. And that's what's so frustrating, because I would love to be able to engage with criticism of my work, but all too often criticism of my work is not criticism of my work, it's criticism of what people assume my work is. I had a wine burp, wow. This is not a very flattering video. But here's the thing, okay, so going back to the whole LeftTube thing. I love all those people, but I can't help but notice that when people criticize them, they actually engage with what they're saying. And for me, it's been very maddening to sort of have this sort of thing where, you know, because here's the thing, you know, I've been on here long enough to have seen, again, a lot of bullshit thrown at me. And the times that I've tried to engage with criticism of my work, it's been a lot of just straight up disrespect, you know? And I know that this might be confusing to some people, but I don't give a fuck if you don't think I'm cute. I don't give a fuck if you think I look like a man. I don't give a fuck if you think I look like, I don't give a fuck. I really don't care. I know that when you say you don't care, it sounds like you care, but I really don't care. I would rather you just criticize my thoughts, you know? This is what's really frustrating about my work. This is a whole other video too. My work is not about what I look like. It's not about any of this. It's not about any of this. It's about this, okay? It's about this. And it's frustrating to me that when I look into criticisms of my work, it's never, oh, well, she said this, this, and this, and this. This is my response. It's often, well, she said this, and it's cut off conveniently. Insert your own version of what I said, and you're gonna criticize this straw man, and now I'm supposed to answer to it. I mean, perfect example of it is like, people think I hate white people. You know, and that's such an annoying thing for me because it's so funny because I feel like there's a side of the internet that thinks that I hate white people. Then there's a side of the internet that thinks that I'm too nice to white people, right? I'm so patient with white people. I've got fucking a Smith's CD vinyl up here, you know? Morrissey's a fucking racist, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so patient with white people. I'm so forgiving to white people. But people really do take and run with this idea that like, I'm just this like anti-white motherfucker. And then there's these pro-black people who think that I'm not, you know, I'm not enough of that sort of person. And I'm just not. The thing to understand about me, the thing to understand about me is that I'm a Virgo, okay? I know that this is not, it's so funny, I say I'm a Virgo, but I'm definitely not I don't believe in astrology, but like, I'm such a mediator, okay? And I really often do find myself, I always like to, not that the in-between is true, I'm not into centrism, let's not even do that. But I often just try to find, I like to listen to both sides. I like to consider both arguments. I like to consider both things and then try to sort of see what makes the most sense to me. Do you know what I mean? And so often I am trying to reason with one side and also the other. And so I'm not the sort of, so a lot of people, so here's the thing, I guess this makes me very liberal in my politics, to be honest with you guys. You know, I'm not quite a leftist, even though leftist ideas sound more and more seductive to me as time goes on. You know, I have the frustration of people who say, oh my gosh, you know, Kat, you're not going far enough. You know, but then I also have the frustration of people who, by the virtue of me being an openly trans Black woman, think that I am just the most radical thing in the world. And it's really frustrating because I'm not, you know, and I don't need for you to agree with that, but it's really upsetting to consistently engage with criticisms of your work that do not at all describe what you're saying, right? It's very aggravating. And then to see your white colleagues just be treated with such respect and consideration, have their work actually listened to, it's very aggravating. It's very, 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 very aggravating. And I want to make it clear, it's not the fault of my white colleagues. Again, I think their work is amazing. I love H Bomber Guy's content. I love his content so much. You know, I love his whole thing. I've always loved this whole thing. I love ContraPoints. I love those people so much. Lindsay is like, me and her, we're like wine moms together. Like, she's great. Like, I love all of these people. They're so amazing and deserve every bit of what they have. It's also very hard for me to observe how their thoughts are considered, but mine aren't. You know, I just get to be the Black avatar that people tear down. I just get to be the angry Black woman that people dismiss, right? And like one of the examples, I'll give you an example of this, right? If you get a chance, watch my video that I made about Blue Lives Matter, right? And in that video, I am the most patient, borderline cop apologist person you could ever think of. Like, you know, because the Blue Lives Matter video that I made was about this law that was trying to be passed in Louisiana that was trying to qualify cops as the possible recipients. I was trying to find that word. I'm a little drunk. Of hate crimes, right? That's what I was talking about, right? And I kind of talked about how being Black is an inherent quality. Being a cop is a job. It's not hate crime. You know what I mean? It's just not the same thing. Not that violence against cops is okay. I don't agree with that at all, but it's just not the same thing. Now, I remember when the comments rolled in, I would have believed that I basically made a video that said, fuck all the cops, fuck cops deserve to die, ACAB, you know, you would think that that's what I said. But what I actually said was, hey guys, I think cops are kind of okay. I'm not distinctly anti-cop, but I don't think that cops should qualify for hate crimes because being a cop is not an inherent quality, it's a profession, right? But by the comments, you believe that I just said, fuck the police. And I remember when I was looking at the comments of that video, I felt so much self-doubt. I felt so much self-doubt where I was just like, oh, I must have said something really bad because the comments are really bad and the download's really bad. But I watched the video back and I was like, honestly, this is a really good fucking video. Like, you did a really good job with this video. You know what I mean? Like, that's the conclusion that I came to. It was like, you actually did a great video. This is a great video, you know? Because I sit there for hours and I research and I research and I research and I try really hard to make sure that like what I'm saying is correct and what I'm saying is not wrong and is sourced and all. I mean, I put so much effort into that. And it's so frustrating because what I observe is a white person could just come and be like, no. And that is trusted more than my research, more than all the work that I put in. And it's very, very, very frustrating. Now, I'm ranting a little bit, and I was trying to make this video a little bit more together, but you know, girl, we have some box wine here and we're having a good time. But I want to make this point. This was an important point. So in my first part of my rebranding of white nationalism video, I use a video by the user named Faraday Speaks, which I actually think is a really great video. I think it's a really, really great video. But his video kind of pointed out something to me. His video, it made me realize something. I think it was a really insightful video. In his video, he talks about ContraPoints. And he talks about how when he first clicked on one of Natalie's videos, he was initially turned off by her because she was a trans woman, right? But he stuck with it and suddenly, kind of started to see the error of his ways. And it really started to make me think about how people click on my videos. Now, you guys see me right now, okay? Like, this is me. This is like the real me. This is me in my final form, okay? Like, a lot of you guys are so used to seeing me going like, hey guys, it's Kat, da-da-da-da, oh my God. You're so used to me, like, seeing me trying to be such a, cutesy, wootsy, batootsy sort of person, especially if you started following me a couple of years ago when I was in a relationship and I was like very invested in maintaining this like super vanilla image, right? You're so used to seeing that version of me, right? And I'm just being myself now so I can be who I am, but it made me think a lot about how much I tried so hard to be this digestible person, but how much that didn't work, because at the end of the day, I'm still Black and transgender. And to reinforce this point that I made at the very beginning of this video, I'm not the sort of person who likes to look at my race and my gender or anything as things that define me and therefore hold me back. That's not who I am as a person. But I have to be aware of the fact that there's a reason why ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube and Lindsay and all these other BreadTube / LeftTube people are doing so well and just happen to be white. And it's because regardless of how nice I may seem, how positive I may present my image, how politely I may dress what I say, I'm a Black girl. And for some people, that will always be too much. And this leads me to what I really wanted to talk about in my white nationalism video. I'll be really transparent with you guys. The first part of that white nationalist video, it was really hard for me to make. It was really, really hard for me to make. And it was hard for me to make because I think when you're a Black person, you understand racism. Well, you understand that racism exists, rather. Like my father, when I was younger, told me a story of how his grandfather, was a sharecropper. And one day a white man came over, whipped him off of his horse and killed him. And that was just part of our history, Racism was just part of our history, right? We know that it exists and we're aware of how bad it is, And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because I've noticed, because there's a cycle here, There's sort of this cyclical issue right here that I'm about to point out, right? As a person of color, right, I say to people who support anti-racism or fight for anti-racism that they should stand up and stand up against racism, right? But at the other hand, it's been hard for me to accept that a lot of white people will only believe that racism exists if a white person tells them it does. Do you understand what I mean? When I was listening to a lot of these white nationalists, because it's not that I haven't heard this stuff. I've researched this stuff, okay? This is not shit that's new to me. But listening to white supremacists after white supremacists after white supremacists basically argue that Black people are genetically inferior and that people of color at large deserve to be shipped off to different lands that are completely foreign to them, right? Because of the superiority of the white race, and that's just how it is. It's very hurtful. Very, 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 very hurtful. And so it's hard for me sometimes to engage with that content because I already know about it. I'm already aware of it. It's not new to me, right? But it's hard to hear. It's very hard to hear. And what I've come to understand is that white people can engage in that content a little bit more freely than I can. White people they have the ability to listen to another white person say something heinously racist and not have it affect them in the way that it affects me, right? And the reason I'm pointing that out is because I know that in part, that's why these people, these LeftTube in general makes content that is so successful and so good, because people are willing to listen to them. But what hurts me is knowing that me saying, hey, guess what? These white racists trying to fucking hurt me and people like me. That's fucked up. To know that that is not enough is incredibly hurtful. It's incredibly hurtful to know that a person of color is just saying, hey, this shit sucks. That's not enough is incredibly hurtful. Faraday Speaks needed a white woman to tell him that racism was real before he believed that it was. When white men were telling him that the white race was the best, that the white race deserved to be, to secure itself, we need to secure a future for the white children and all that, it was, so believable. But it's not enough for me as a black person to say racism fucking sucks. And one of the things that he says is that whenever he engaged with a person of color, he would just be dismissed rather as a racist. And when he was dismissed as a racist, that made him feel more connected to the shitty ideas that he held. That made him double down, not sort of walk away and say, oh, well, maybe these ideas are messed up. And it's really hurtful for me to understand that for many white people, they'll never actually be against racism unless it's a thing that white people tell them they should be against. And it's a hard thing for me to swallow. Again, I don't like blaming anything on my race, my gender, my anything, but I can't ignore how much I am dismissed in comparison to my white counterparts because of my race and my gender. I don't want that to be the case, but it is. It is. Because even if because some people will say, well, it's the quality of your content, your mic is bad, your camera is bad, you look weird, like, why would I listen to you? A lot of people will say that, right? But why isn't it enough for me to say through a tin can, hey, white nationalism fucking sucks, for you to actually believe it? Why do we have to sit around and debate Nazis? Why do we have to sit around and have conversations about why genocide isn't okay? Why do we have to have conversations about this shit? Why can't you just listen to a person of color say that white nationalist rhetoric is violent and fucking believe it? Why? Why? Why do you need a white person to sit there and debate with a white nationalist before you decide that white nationalism is wrong? Why? Why? And it's hurtful to have that knowledge. It's hurtful to have that awareness. It's hurtful to be so intimately aware that regardless of the terror that you feel when you engage with this shit, it doesn't matter until a white person gives a fuck. And that's the cycle that I talk about, because we on one hand say allies should help us. Allies should speak for us when we're not there. But at the other hand, it's not enough if we say we're scared. And it should be. It should be enough to you to hear a person say, you know what, this white nationalist shit scares the shit out of me. It should be enough for you to say, you know what, I'm going to take a stand against it. You shouldn't need a white person to tell you that being shitty to a person of color is wrong. You shouldn't need that. And I don't want to ruin my series. I mean, because the reality is that it doesn't mean, look, I'm not going to down my own work. I do great work. I like my work, whatever. But I know that it's never going to be as successful as my white counterparts, and that's cool, right? But I'll just ruin it for you guys and say that one of the things that's getting to me is just how dire this is. Because, spoiler alert, they're not doing anything to fight against white nationalism. They're not. YouTube is not doing anything to fight against white nationalism. Period. And it is really scary for me to understand that me saying this is scary is not enough. Me saying this is racist is not enough. I understand, I get Faraday's perspective, where a person just calling you a racist isn't gonna help you change your mind. It's not gonna help you see things clearer. It's not going to, I get it. Because sometimes when people call a racist, they get defensive, right? But why isn't it enough for a person to say that's racism and that be it? Why isn't it enough? You know, I think part of my frustration, even though I support these conversations, is the fact that these people go back and forth, and we have debates with white nationalists, we have debates with Nazis, we try to find common ground, and it's like, do you think these people give a fuck about your right to freedom of speech? Do you think these people give a fuck about your right to freedom of speech? Do you genuinely believe that if a white nationalist got their way, that they're going to be on the front lines fighting for your freedom of speech? If you do, you're a fool. If you do, you're a fucking fool. And that's what that just makes me so annoyed about this shit, is this intimate understanding of the fact that my voice, if these people get what they want, doesn't matter. It barely matters now, but it's definitely not going to matter if somehow, some way these people get what they want. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't like to overthink shit or think that things can happen. But the conversation that I had at YouTube HQ made me recognize, oh, okay, we're really not going to be doing anything about this, are we? Or rather, we'll do some stuff. We'll do things here and there, you know, we'll do something, but we're not going to stop it. You know, we're not going to stop it in its tracks. We're gonna pontificate, and we're gonna debate, and we're gonna have these, you know, all these conversations. But at the end of the day, we're not going to stop it. Because here's the thing, I hear white nationalist rhetoric, and I think it is inherently violent. Inherently. I'm going to do a whole video really dissecting all of these white nationalist ideas and their history and in a very polite way, as I usually do. But their rhetoric is inherently violent, and I know that a lot of people hearing it on the surface don't hear that. But it is inherently violent. Inherently violent. And I know that sometimes the ways in which these LeftTubers, these white LeftTubers, gain success, I know that they gain success because they're willing to engage with it. And you know, that's effective. And again, nothing against them. I think it's amazing that they do it. I think it is necessary work. I guess it just upsets me that it is necessary work. It frustrates me that it's necessary work. It frustrates me that a person of color can't just say, this shit sucks and it's racist and that's respected. It gets to me. It gets to me that that's not enough. It really, truly gets to me that that's not enough. We have to have a white person stand up for us before we're believed. And one of the ways I feel that way is because, you know, like, I'll just name names because why, who cares? Okay. So, I am very aware of what my politics are. You guys maybe are less aware because I've been very vague about what my politics are. But I know that my politics are not what a lot of people assume that they are, right? I remember when Steph Sagnotti took a photo with me at VidCon. I love Steph Sagnotti. She's awesome. And so many people, and Steph is in some ways, more outspoken than I am. I mean, even though I have a very political platform, she doesn't. In some ways, she's more outspoken than I am. And it was really interesting to see when she posted that photo, all of her white followers suddenly started to say, oh, katblaque, she feels this way, this way, and this way, and this way. And I really fuck with her because she said to her followers, if you disagree with Kat, you disagree with me. You know? And it's weird because Steph probably has more, I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but I'm so forgiving. I'm not a very cut people off sort of person, you know? And Steph is a little bit more like that. And a lot of the white people I really fuck with are really more like that, to be honest, because I'm too forgiving. I'm too polite, you know, to my own detriment more often than not. And it was very interesting for me to observe how people reacted to her versus reacted to me, even though we have similar perspectives. Anyway, I'm really ranting, and I want to say, I really can't even stress this enough. Contra, Ollie, I mean, your work is, Lindsay, Jenny, your guys' work is so amazing. H Bomber Guy, Harris, I love your work so much. I love it so much. So much. It's just frustrating to me how often my work is dismissed and minimized because of who I am. And I would say because of how I feel or how I present my image, if that were true. I would say that. because I'm too aggressive or I'm too mean, I'm too angry, if that were true. But like going back to my Blue Lives Matter video, I watched back that video, I'm like, I'm so nice. I'm so polite. But that doesn't matter. And that's what I'm reacting to, the fact that I have been the angry Black avatar for so many people's work, for so many people's stuff. I've been the angry Black avatar. And what's true doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I don't hate all white people. It doesn't matter that I don't hate all cis people. It doesn't matter that I don't hate all men. That's the story that they can sell that's convenient, and you guys believe it for some reason or another. It's very frustrating. So anyway, I've got to go. I'm definitely drunk, and this is gonna be a very interesting video for me to edit because I'm probably all over the place. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. I would really love to know if you guys have observed the same sort of thing as I have. LeftTube is very white, and I think that's for a reason. LeftTube generally, honestly, LeftTube is not different from any other vertical on YouTube. YouTube in general is very white. YouTube in general will always probably prioritize white voices over the voices of people of color. And that sucks, especially in a conversation like white nationalism, where the people who suffer the most are not white people. And it's a complicated thing because at the end of the day, I do believe that white people need to stick up because they're not gonna listen to us. They're not gonna listen to us. So I hope that what I said in this video doesn't make white people feel like they can't stand up. It's a little frustrating to me that me saying, hey, I'm scared isn't enough. But at the same time, I don't want white people to stop talking because I think that's very important. So anyway, I'm gonna go and dance and pretend that we're not living in this terrible world. So I'll talk to you guys later. Right now you are seeing two awesome videos that you guys can watch if you'd like to continue to listen to True Tea. I promise I am not this drunk in most of my videos. So hopefully you guys will stick along with me on this channel and continue to watch and learn, share, and grow with me right here on my channel. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.